Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video. In today's video, I'm going to be predicting the Pool versus Fury fight. If you are new around here though and you haven't subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do need like the video, and let's get straight into it. So, going into this fight, Paul is 6-0 with 4 KOs, and Fury is 8-0 with 4 KOs. This fight is an 8-round fight in the Cruiserweight division. Paul's last fight was a win via unanimous decision versus Silva, and Fury's last fight was a win via points versus Bokianski. Also on this card is Makabu versus Jack for the WBC World Cruiserweight belt, in which I think Makabu will win via unanimous decision. I think Makabu is the more experienced fighter, has faced the tougher opposition in the past, of course is the current champion, and I believe is the better fighter than Jack, and will be able to get the win from them kind of factors alone realistically, and also the fact that Jack has had losses against not as good as opponents of what I'd say Makabu has fought or even is in himself in the past, and so yeah, that's another reason why I think Makabu will win. Back onto the Paul vs Fury fight though, this fight has had a big build up over a long period of time. I mean, it's been about a year since it got announced they were going to fight last year, and obviously that didn't happen, but yeah, it's had a lot of build up, a lot of back and forths going on. Of course, Fury's had a child since then. I mean, it could affect him. I mean, it's not obviously an attribute that's going to affect him, but mentally it could affect him. He might have more pressure now because he's trying to impress his child, or he could have not focused as much in training because he's got the child or whatever, but them kind of things can play a factor in your mindset. Fury has a good jab, has a traditional boxing style, but struggles to get his opponents out at times. I mean, I know he's 4-0, and I mean it's credible to have 4 knockouts in your 8 fights, but in his recent fights, especially his last 2 fights, I feel like he had chances to be able to get his opponent out, especially in his last fight, and he didn't do that. And I don't think that Bokianski fight, he was fighting a tough opponent. Bokianski I don't think is a good fighter, and I think he definitely should have done more. He's just kind of cruising through it, and I mean, I can respect maybe if you're at Mayweather's level to cruise through a fight, but you're not, and you're just building your way up, and this is where you want to prove that you're the best, and that you can prove that you can fight against any like a tough opposition, and you deserve top opposition, and these kind of lower level fights aren't really too big of a deal for you. And he didn't really show that in his last fight or the fight before realistically, and so that's why I think he does struggle to get his opponent out at times. Not saying he doesn't have the ability or the power, he definitely does. He just struggles to change gear and go into that sometimes. This both, in my opinion, is their toughest tests to date. I mean, Paul's had lots of slander for not fighting a proper boxer before, and Fury, I think this is his toughest test, even though he's fought Bokianski, who was 11-1 at the time. I believe he was 11-1. Yeah, I still think this is his toughest test. Because I think both fighters want it as more. I think both fighters are better skilled fighters, and overall, I think this is a very good matchup. And I mean, boxing wise, if this was just a low level fight between Paul and Fury, record wise, skill wise, this is a very high matchup. This is in England probably like maybe an English belt or a Southern area belt or an area belt, and I think it's fair to get this as a matchup, and it's a respectable matchup because they're both at similar points in their careers. Paul carries immense power and will walk you onto his big overhand rights, and that's something that he's always good at and has done to majority of his opponents. And if he does catch you with that, it's very tough to be able to stand up from that. And I mean, there's been fights where he hasn't gotten into that. At that Tyron Woodley fight, he didn't show his technical ability as much, and he didn't look great in that fight, and he did look like his conditioning wasn't amazing, but he managed to get that knockout which managed to get him out there. And I mean, even in the first Tyron Woodley fight, he wasn't looking great throughout that, and he got rocked. And I think being rocked though is a good thing for Paul, because Fury's never really experienced that, and so I think because Paul has experienced that, he knows what it feels like, and even though he is only 6-0, he has that experience more than what Fury has, and so will be more used to, if he does get caught with any of Fury's punches, to be able to bounce back from that than if Paul hits Fury with one of them punches. Paul, like I said, isn't that technical. Fury, I would say, is a lot more technical, and but Paul will punish confidence, and like I said, he will walk you down. But if you are overly cocky and that's seemingly what Fury is a bit. He will just punish you with that. And I mean, of course, that technical ability, if Fury can keep to a game plan and keep watch for that big overhand right, like I said, he will be able to maybe outbox him, and that's probably his best hope of being able to get the win for this fight. Fury has good movement, like I said, that's going to be a factor that he might have to rely on to be able to dodge out the way of the big overhand rights and just keep Paul at the length of his jab, and that's something I believe he should do. I don't think he needs to make it an entertaining fight. I know a lot of people want it to be, but I don't think he needs to be, and I think he should just try and outbox his opponent there. This fight is a huge fight for both fighters, of course. Furies have put a lot of pressure on Tommy Fury for this fight, and Paul, I mean, his whole career is kind of based off being an unbeaten pro boxer now, and if he loses that, he's got some big contracts signed already with, of course, the PFL and that, and so these kind of fights might not be happening if he loses this. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see with that. But Fury is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Paul will win via TKO in round 7. I think it'll be a good close fight throughout, and I just think Paul's power will be just too much for Fury, and he, of course, like I said, he hasn't experienced that, and then I think Paul will, like I've also been saying, walk him onto a punch and then be able to get him out of there in round 7, maybe getting a knockdown a bit earlier on in the fight as well. But yeah, and then I mean, I've kind of put in 2 people he might fight next just because they're kind of around him at the moment and in the news around him, and that's Diaz. Of course, there's a possible MMA fight happening there, or if not, a boxing and MMA fight happening there, and that might be happening soon. I think Paul said something about that happening, or being in the works after this Fury fight, so maybe that might happen. Or of course, Froch, he's been talking some smack, and that possibly might happen. I doubt that'll happen, but he's kind of the latest name to be around fighting Paul at the moment. And yeah, though, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.